newspaper, and the conclusion, sir, is an unavoidable and inescapable one. The conclusion is an unavoidable, inescapable, and inevitable. That today we have a system that is open and transparent. Not only, sir, are the transactions advertised publicly. Not only, sir, are the transactions advertised publicly. But today, sir, those advertisements indicate at the bottom, tenders will be opened on X date, at X venue. In most instances, it's the National Procurement and Tenders Board. Mr. Speaker, I will go further. We enjoy the circumstance in Guyana today where the mass media is free to attend the opening of tenders, and they do so. They report publicly, and we welcome this scrutiny. We welcome this interest in the scrutiny. They report publicly who the tenderers are, what the prices tendered were, and that is carried, that information is carried in the national newspapers. What is more, sir? When an award is made, that award is publicly announced, made publicly available, published on a website, and announced publicly, placed in the public domain, placed on the public record. So you have public advertisements, you have public openings, you have public announcement of the successful tender. You have a documented and well-established mechanism for protests were one to feel that one was treated unfairly. There have been instances where persons have complained or they've inquired why they were unsuccessful, and they were advised that their bid was compliant or non-compliant in whichever respect it was or wasn't. So let us be clear. Let us be clear, sir, that as far as the relevant standards of rigor are concerned, Guyana's public procurement system can withstand any degree of scrutiny. Any degree of scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, over and beyond. So we have firstly, sir, the fact that what this bill seeks, we have, sir, firstly the fact that this bill does not seek an increase, an embellishment, an enlargement of the authority that is currently enjoyed by Cabinet. That must be made clear. This bill does not seek to close the Cabinet with any additional authority that the Cabinet does not currently enjoy. That one. Secondly, sir, the argument has somehow crept into the public consciousness that the Public Procurement Commission can somehow discharge or will somehow discharge this function, and that this bill seeks somehow to diminish or reduce the mandate or authority of the Public Procurement Commission. That is the second issue I wish to address. Mr. Speaker, the Public Procurement Commission is a constitutional commission. It is established by virtue of Article 212W, inserted into the supreme written law of our land, by Constitutional Amendment Act, passed by this Honorable House, again passed by our distinguished predecessors with a vote in favor from both sides of this House, in 2001. I believe it was Act number 5 of 2001, that inserted the said article, Article 212W. That article stipulated that there shall be a public procurement commission, the purpose of which is to monitor public procurement and the procedures therefore to monitor, in order to ensure that the procurement of goods and services and execution of works are conducted in a fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective manner according to law and such policy guidelines as may be determined by the National Assembly. The next article, that article having established the commission, the next article spoke of the commission's composition. 212X. 212Y spoke of the procedure for its appointment. Importantly, sir, 212Y spoke of, in fact it's 212X that actually says it, that the commission shall be appointed by His Excellency the President after its members shall have been nominated by the Public Accounts Committee, which as we know is chaired by, now by standing orders, chaired by a frontbench member of the opposition. And after such members shall have been approved by not less than 2/3 of the elected members of this National Assembly. 212Y speaks of appointment of vacancies, the next article about the Secretariat, and then the next article, 212AA, speaks of functions of the Public Procurement Commission. Monitor, review, promote awareness, safeguard national interest, monitor again, monitor and review, investigate complaints, initiate investigations, etc., etc. 212AA is instructive. There is nothing that can be done by simple majority that can limit, reduce, or otherwise alter these constitutionally enshrined functions of the Public Procurement Commission. And so that is the second key issue that I would like to address. Does the Procurement Amendment Bill currently before us seek somehow, put simply, does the preservation of the Cabinet, no objection, in any way limit, restrict, proscribe, or hinder the functions or the discharge thereof of or by the Public Procurement Commission? The answer to that would have to be equally a resounding no. We can't, by simple majority, reduce constitutionally enshrined functions that were vested in this commission by a 2/3 majority, unless of course we apply the interpretation that some of my friends on that side of the House would like to apply to the entrenchment clause of the new Constitution. And if we apply that interpretation, and I see my friend, the distinguished Honorable Member Dr. Rupert Utenrijk, who served on that Constitutional Commission, and who I believe must be shuddering to think that these wonderful 2001 constitutional articles can now all be swept aside by way of simple majority. Somehow I doubt that the Honourable Member Dr. Rupert Utenrijk, distinguished member as he was, I hear Mr. Greenidge saying that he can't speak. It sounds like you would like to speak for him, sir. I wouldn't dare to do it. I wouldn't dare to do it. Unless one applies the interpretation that Mr. Greenidge, I shouldn't paint all of the members of that side of the House with the same brush as I paint Mr. Greenidge. I really should not do them that disservice, sir. Unless, sir, one applies Mr. Greenidge's unique interpretation of the 2001. I hear some members on this side of the House urging me to paint them all with the same brush. But unless one would like to paint one, sir, I hear some members on this side of the House suggesting that the brush with which I paint Mr. Greenidge should be applied more lightly. But I was saying, sir, that unless one applies Mr. Greenidge's interpretation, and Mr. Basil Williams's now confessed interpretation of the constitutional entrenchment clause, which suggests that the overwhelming majority of these 2001 constitutional amendments cannot be swept aside by a simple majority, then we cannot vary the functions of the Public Procurement Commission by simple majority. And so, sir, I wish to make the point emphatically that the preservation of Cabinet's right of no objection for contracts above a stipulated threshold, that is to say, the legislative amendment sought the status quo to be accomplished by the legislative amendment sought by Bill number 17 of 2013, does not, could not, and does not, and will not in any way reduce, diminish, or restrict the functions of the Public Procurement Commission. Those functions remain constitutionally protected, unless Mr. Greenidge does injury to them. They remain constitutionally protected. They remain enshrined in the comfort of this supreme law. They remain intact. Once the commission shall have been appointed, one can only assume that they will be discharged in their fullness. This bill currently before us does no injury, does no harm to these functions. The Public Procurement Commission will function and will discharge its constitutionally vested functions. Let us be clear about that. And let us not run around creating the impression that somehow Cabinet's no objection will mean that the PPC will not be able to do its work. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. The PPC will of course do its work. Its functions are there, protected in the Constitution. And so that, sir, is the second major issue that I would like to put on the table. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to address the issue of whether and why Cabinet should have the right of no objection. And this, in fact, goes to the very core of the constitutionally enshrined role of the executive and responsibility of the executive. It goes to the very core of the concepts of accountability and responsibility, and indeed transparency, and indeed, but more particularly accountability and responsibility. It goes to the very core. It goes to the very core. And I will return and elaborate on this matter before I conclude. Let us examine, sir. Let us examine, sir, whether Guyana displays any uniqueness or any novelty Let us consider, sir, whether Guyana displays any uniqueness or novelty in Cabinet's right of no objection, or Cabinet involvement more generally in a function such as this. Let us examine, sir, let us examine, sir, before I get to the comparative jurisdictional examples. Let us examine, sir, our development partners, the donor agencies. Let us examine, they have mature procurement regulations and guidelines that are in existence, approved by their respective boards, and that are in operation. And one has merely to examine any one of them to see that in all of their activities, whether it is the IDB or the World Bank or the European Union, they all have the right of no objection before a procurement transaction can be executed, using funds that are sourced from their treasuries. So let us examine the European Union. Let us examine, sir, the European Union, we're getting to that. I can understand your eagerness to hear what I have to say. Let us examine, for example, the European Union procurement guideline. And I will go straight to where it says, before signing contracts, and they're very lengthy guidelines, I only extracted the relevant paragraph. Before signing contracts, the contracting authority submits the results. In fact, I should have gone back and said, in the case of the European Union, copies of the tenders are submitted to the relevant delegation, the European delegation in the applicable jurisdiction, whether it's Guyana or wherever. So they receive copies of the tenders. In fact, they were about to receive and give their objection to the tender document in the first instance. But before signing contracts, the contracting authority submits the results of the evaluations for approval to the European Commission that verifies conformity with applicable procedures. It also sends the contracts to the European Commission for endorsement before signing them. This is replicated everywhere. If you look at the World Bank procurement guidelines, the World Bank procurement guidelines, I'm here reading here from guidelines, procurement of goods, works and services, and non-consulting services under IBRD loans, and INET credits and grants by World Bank borrowers, January 2011, procedures that are applicable not only to Guyana, but to any borrower from the World Bank. And I will read here from page 39. The borrower shall award, and again, it's a large I could read, I have lengthy sections highlighted, but I will go straight to the point. The borrower shall award the contract only after receiving the no objection from the bank. That's the World Bank procurement guidelines. So if you're procuring something funded by the World Bank, you are required to obtain, prior to the award of the contract, you're required to obtain World Bank no objection. It is standard, very standard. Very standard. Sir, if one were to look at the IDB policies for the procurement of goods and works funded by the IDB, this is a document dated March 2011. One will see the document says at page 28, after bids have been received, and again this is applicable not only to Guyana but to every borrower from the IDB, for every transaction that is funded by IDB resources, At page 28, the procurement guidelines read as follows. After bids have been received and evaluated, the borrower shall, before a final decision on the award is made, furnish to the bank in sufficient time for its review a detailed report on the evaluation and comparison of bids received, together with the recommendations for award and such other information the bank shall reasonably request. The bank shall, if it determines that the intended award will be inconsistent with the loan contract and or the procurement plan, promptly inform the borrower and state the reasons for such determination. Otherwise, sir, the bank shall provide its no objection to the recommendation for contract award. This is the IDB procurement guidelines. I will read again.
One second, please, government. Your time is up. Yes.
Madam President, I move that the Honorable Minister of Finance be given about 15 minutes to continue his presentation.
All there is a motion on the floor for the minister to continue. Please know that in our neighboring Trinidad and Tobago members' time has been abridged to 20 minutes for presentation as of Monday. Honourable Minister, there's no objection to the chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The IDB guidelines says very clearly, the bank shall provide its no objection to the recommendation for contract award. And it goes on to say, the borrower shall award the contract only after receiving the no objection from the bank. So there you have it, sir. IDB, this responsibility is discharged not by some nebulous entity called the bank. It's discharged by staff of the bank. It's not the staff's money, sir. It's not the staff's money. This is a function that is discharged by agents of the bank, management and staff. Not by some nebulous concept out there, some ethereal concept out there called the bank. So here we have the IDB. I can understand the agitation over there, sir. I am told by more experienced colleagues that when my friends on that side of the house become agitated, you must be doing something right. I can understand their agitation. It is a measure. It is a measure, sir, of the gravity by which they are struck at the arguments I am making. Were there to be sitting silently, sir, I would be worried. I would be thinking of myself as ineffectual. Mr. Speaker, let us turn to the Caribbean, comparable jurisdiction. Let us turn to comparable jurisdiction. Let us turn to Jamaica. Yes. The Contractor General Act. The Contractor General Act. Let us examine the functions, sir. Let us examine, sir, the functions of the National Contracts Commission. Let us examine, sir. My friends on that side of the house clearly have not studied. I can see their excitement at the Jamaican example because they clearly haven't studied it, sir. They clearly haven't studied it. I can see it because they see the odd newspaper report about the Contractor General in Jamaica and they become excited. They clearly have not studied the Jamaican example. Let us read. I'm told I shouldn't be surprised by the fact they haven't studied it. I still give them the benefit of the doubt. Let us examine, Mr. Speaker.
Let us settle down so that we can have this debate. Let us settle down. Let us settle down. Proceed, please, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I am told that when one meanders into irrelevances, it's a sign of
You should know when the speaker says settle down, it's on both sides. I advise that you proceed with the prayer. Proceed.
Let us examine the Jamaican example. Within the Jamaican regime is provided as follows: the establishment of the National Contracts Commission. And amongst the functions of that National Contracts Commission are as follows, and I read here now from section 23BC. In the case of government contracts above the specified limits, making recommendations to the Cabinet regarding the award of such contracts. That's the Jamaican law, sir. And if you want to have that further elaborated, I invite for your consideration, sir, the Government of Jamaica Handbook of Public Sector Procurement Procedures, Volume 1 of 4. General Provisions, Ministry of Finance and Planning, updated not so long ago, the 14th of May 2012. At page 6, under section 2.2, titled Functional Responsibilities, are the responsibilities set out at 2.1 of the Cabinet. And I quote, sir, from this Jamaican Handbook of Public Sector Procurement Procedures as follows. At section 221, it says, and I quote, the Cabinet is responsible for setting the national policy for public procurement and directives that govern the procurement process, and the Cabinet approves the award of contracts with value above the prescribed threshold. Permit me, sir, to repeat that for emphasis. The Cabinet is responsible for setting the national policy for public procurement and directives that govern the procurement process, and the Cabinet approves, not grant, in no objection. Not grant and no objection. The Cabinet approves the award of contracts with values above the prescribed level. Mr. Speaker, this example, sir, replicates itself. This example, sir, replicates itself across jurisdictions throughout our region. So what we have, in fact, is something superior. What we have, in fact, is something superior with an additional layer of oversight. Not something inferior, Mr. Speaker, this example replicates itself. This example replicates itself across many jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, in much the same manner, one could examine legislation across our region. In fact, one can go outside of our region and examine provisions of more developed countries. One can, in fact, go outside of our region and go to jurisdictions outside of our region. Much larger jurisdictions, where, in fact, procurement, the function of procurement transactions still resides within the executive authority, subject, of course, to controls and systems for disclosure and for accountability and transparency. We have no problem with that. We have no problem with that. In fact, we are the ones who have put this legislative framework on the law books of our country. Make no mistake about that. Make no mistake about that. And so, Mr. Speaker, the question is, why is it that all of these jurisdictions, if you look even at Canada, you have the Treasury Board, which in fact is a board comprising 5 cabinet ministers. That is the ultimate authority for procurement transactions. And that is Canada, a mature jurisdiction with a large and complex bureaucracy. And the responsibility for procurement transactions rests with the Treasury Board, which comprises 5 cabinet ministers. Mr. Speaker, the question is,